You're listening to the Art of Making a Home podcast with Sandro Stefanucci, a home builder with over 37 years of experience in the industry. This series shows you the construction industry from the contractor's perspective. As well, what is it really like to work with the many different types of industry experts like interior designers, architects, and subtrades? And a lot of our friends in those positions are going to come on during this podcast and have a discussion with us about what it's like to work with the contractor and really what is it like to build a home. We all want to share our expertise with you so you can make the right decisions when it comes to wanting to build your dream home. So let's get started.
Hello, beautiful people. It's Sandro Stefanucci from Abstract Homes and Renovations, and today we are here with Khang Nguyen from Architrix Design Studios. Khang is a local designer in Vancouver, and we today are going to be discussing zoning regulations and some changes around, property usage in the Vancouver area and BC for that matter, but more specifically Vancouver. And just to get started, we're going to ask, who is Khang? How did you get Architrix started?
Right. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the intro, Sandro. Yeah, my name is Khang Nguyen, and I run a little company called Architrix Design Studios. Your listeners might have seen our signs and our homes and our projects around the city. And yeah, I've been working as a designer in Vancouver since 2007 now, February 2007. So quite a long time. And before that, I was working with Formworks Architectural, which is kind of a larger scale, higher end housing architectural firm. And from there, I ended up kind of starting a small, side business because there was quite the need for designers and draftspeople at that time. And so I was providing, services for renos and just small additions. And it got to a point where we just were doing really good work. We made good relationships and good connections, and it kind of exploded from there. And so I left Formworks and started Architrix officially in 2007, and we've been growing and doing really well ever since.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that just gives you a bit of background, guys, on Khang and how we started. The topic we wanted to talk about today is, as most people know, that there has been some zoning changes in Vancouver, property usage and the changes in property use, and also in the permitting times, because they are talking about trying to get the permits out faster. Yeah. So, and I've already had people, some of the customers are already asking me, well, does it take longer to get a permit now? And to be honest with you, I don't know if I can honestly answer that question and say yes or no. I've had other colleagues of mine who said, oh yeah, I got a permit in 2 weeks from this big rental that we were doing, which I just blew me away because I said, there's no way you got it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. It varies.
Right.
Sure.
But it does vary so much like that. Yeah. So I guess, let's talk about, first of all, the zoning regulations and some changes in that area. So maybe if you could just break down, because we have laneways, we have single family properties that, now what can we do with that? Say you got a standard size lot in Vancouver. With the changes that they're making, what can be done to that property now if you wanted to max out on the density?
Yeah, it's really interesting. They meaning, council and city staff have been working quite hard over the past couple of years, really initiated by Kennedy Stewart, to really explore what could be done in the typical RS zone, which comprises of quite a large percentage of the zoning in Vancouver. And so under the leadership of Kennedy Stewart, that was initiated, and then it kind of got stalled, through his tenure, and then it's really picked up again under Ken Sim, and really the direction ultimately comes from the citizens, us, and just the need for housing in this city and really throughout the province and throughout Canada. There was a podcast recently done with Jake Fry, and he really expressed, the need, and he really explained the history of what was happening in Vancouver and the housing crisis. Even, in the early 80s, this was a topic of conversation. And, now fast forward to 2023 and it's still prevalent, and it's really, we'll see how these new bylaws will help shape the housing industry. But, the need has been around for quite some time. And now with a lot of public pressure and a council that's really listening, we'll see if we can really start to make change and provide new housing options for the city. So the new regulations really are allowing for multiple units on a regular or an RS or a single family zone, which is the RS zone. So in these zones, to allow for multiple family dwelling units to be built instead or in place of single family. And then in terms of laneway housing, they're looking at increasing the size of the laneway house from currently it's 0.16 or 16% of the lot.
Yeah, right.
Say you have right?
Yeah.
So 16% of the lot, what is currently approved, they're looking at increasing that to 0.25 or 25% of the lot. But in hand in hand with that, they're also looking at decreasing the FSR of the main house or the buildable square footage of the main house. So currently you're allowed to build 70% of the lot for the main house and 16% of the lot for the laneway house, giving a total of 86% FSR. That's currently what the zoning allows for. But the new change in terms of just single family and laneway, they're reducing the main house down to 60%, but allowing the laneway to go up to 25%. So they're reducing the maximum buildable area of the main house and allowing the laneway to get bigger. And so there's mixed opinion on that. I personally don't feel that it's the right move. But it's a topic of conversation and debate, and really eventually it'll be a topic for the council and the public to input on it, as well as the next round of council presentation and then public hearing happens later on this year. So those are the main changes for the RS zone. Is the multiple, they call it the multiplex policy. So the multiplex policy, along with this new kind of increased laneway square footage, along with a reduced main house square footage. Right. So that's kind of like the bulk of what's happening in terms of new policies for RS zones.
Right. For the people that don't know what FSR means, could you explain that?
Right. Layman terms, right? FSR stands for floor space ratio. So it's essentially a ratio of what you can build in relation to the size of your land. So if you have, let's say, 100 square feet of land, an FSR of 0.7 will allow you to build 70 square feet of that land as your house, or as your buildable house area.
Right.
Does that make sense? Easy enough to understand that? Okay.
I think so. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we have those changes, and I think most people could understand that there's the multi-unit housing. I mean, I know they talked a lot, the NDP's talking a lot about more townhouses, duplex and triplexes. I was listening to actually Ken Sim last night on a local TV show. He was discussing the challenges that we had here. I think their majority of their focus is densification, is what he said. So I think single family homes, and from what I can understand from coming from him, I don't know if that's really going to change as far as permit times go. So I think they're really looking at densification, duplexes, triplexes, the townhouses, the multi-unit stuff is where they want to put their focus and pumping those through and getting the permits done quickly. Just from your experience right now, have you noticed any changes in the permit times for any types of housing?
So currently, in our experience, the timelines to get your building permit, so there's two streams. There's the outright stream, and then there's the conditional stream. Outright stream, which essentially takes care of, a single family house or a laneway house or a duplex, those are still running, quite long. The city of Vancouver has actually has done well to speed up the process somewhat and to simplify the process somewhat, but we're finding that it's still taking 4 to 6 months to get that building permit issued from the time you submit the building permit. But what they have done to help speed things along is that they're allowing for the salvage and abatement permit, which allows you to go in and to remove hazardous materials, asbestos, oil tanks, and whatnot sooner. So they kind of phase out the permit issuance into a couple of stages that allows you to start the salvage and abatement. And then depending on if it's a character house or if there's any recycling required, they allow you to start to deconstruct the house ahead of time as well. So there's these stages that have been like these permits are issued faster than previously experienced. But ultimately, by the time you're done those two stages, then your building permit is issuable. So it doesn't feel as long in terms of the total issuance time because of these various stages that allow you to get going on some work. But at the end of the day, from the time you submit your permit to when you get an issued building permit, the timeline is actually very similar to previous, to say a year or two ago.
Right. So I just want to back up a bit on that when you said submission of your application. So I know a lot of cases what's happened too is with, once you make your initial submission, it take sometimes a very long time to get back to you in regards to, okay, well, you know what, this is missing on your plans. You need to do this. And then so that takes another couple of weeks. By the time you get it done by your designer, architect, it takes a couple of weeks to get that done. It goes back in the city. Then it goes back into the process again. When you say submission, so once they have accepted your plans, then it's a say 4 to 6 month range. But it could take, depending on who your plan checker is, it could take a little while before they actually have a clean enough submission where they're going to say, okay, yes, yeah, we're good now. We can put it in the stream.
Absolutely, that's correct. There's an initial vetting, let's put it like an initial kind of speed bump at the intake stage to allow the city to just look at all your documents to make sure everything's there. And if you're missing documents or if the city doesn't, accept that intake, you have to resubmit everything and then wait that time again. So yeah, there's a bit of a flaw in that first step. But you know what is really interesting is if you compare it to when, before COVID, where you actually go in to submit, you would go, I don't know if you remember, you probably do, where you would sit there for like 3 hours, right?
You're pretty much sweating.
Yeah, just wasting your time. So now you can submit online, which you can submit at any time, any point in time, which I think was a pretty huge benefit and upgrade to going in person. So I feel that, there's the benefit that they allowed online applications, but I guess the downside is they have to have a way to slow down those intakes so that they have a chance to kind of catch up on just the sheer volume of applications that they get online.
Did you as a designer, have they asked for your input? Are they approaching architects and designers in the residential aspect of it, and are they asking for any input? What do you think about this or that? Is there any kind of collaboration, I guess, with you guys?
Not yet. It's a good question. I think they need to. They should ask us, but they haven't yet. So it'd be worth just an email to, I don't know who it would be, maybe Paula Huber or one of the leaders, someone in higher management, to say, hey, listen, if you have a digital team exploring what could be done digitally, you really should ask the industry about and get some feedback from us. But they haven't yet.
Yeah, interesting. I think that would benefit them greatly.
Huge.
Talking to guys like you, for sure, right?
Huge. Yeah, I think so. I think I will shoot somebody an email about this because, yeah, you're right. They haven't connected with us at all. about input or feedback about how we think the process could be improved.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer for me to think.
Yeah, right. Because there is a not only a like a local municipal mandate, but also a provincial mandate to speed up the permitting process.
So it's not only for Vancouver, but it's for all, because I know that there are
all of BC.
Yeah, they're trying to get everybody to be able to get on this digitized platform, because they know that if they can get it through that process, it's going to be so much faster, right?
The RS regulations to also help expedite the permitting process, because currently, you look at the RS zone, and within the RS zone, you have RS1, RS, I think, 3, RS7, right. RS5,
right.
And I think there's 9 RS zones. And so now what they're looking at doing, and each of them are different in slightly, and
right.
they all have these convoluted calculations and way more words than you really need.
Right.
So they're looking at consolidating all the RS zones into one RS zone.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at, it makes sense. And they're looking at getting rid of all the minutia of the individual zones and making it a much simpler bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beneficial both ways. It's beneficial for us and the industry to interpret what they're saying. And ultimately, it makes it easier for their plan checkers and their staff to review. Hopefully, it all plays out really well, and that next year we can see these new bylaws being issued, and we can start to really look at speeding things up, making the process more efficient.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I think next year would probably be a good, rough time frame to say, well, if the changes are going to happen, we should see some significant changes probably within 2024.
Yeah.
For what they're talking about right now, because everything takes time to trickle down. But I want to switch gears here a little bit too, and everybody's always talking about affordability. That's all they always talk about, including affordability. Mm-hmm. From your side of things, I don't know if you can, but he can really say that that building a home or doing anything construction wise is affordable, because the cost of in a lot of different areas have gone up considerably.
Yeah.
So, in your mind, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a question for the ages, because I was listening to this CBC archival video from, I think it was like 1986 or 1987, and they were interviewing this family looking at buying a home back in the day, and the price of that property, I think, was like $250,000.
Right.
And it wasn't affordable. They were complaining that wasn't affordable. So it's all relative. And I think that affordability in its true essence is a relation to your housing costs to your income. And I believe it's 30% of your income.
That's correct, yeah.
Right? If it's 30% going to your housing costs, then that's deemed affordable.
Right.
And currently, I think in Vancouver, I think the majority of folks are paying like 60, 70, 80% of their household income towards their housing. So I think affordability really is partly, the expectation of what you deem as affordable, in that if you want, a single family home that's a certain size, but you don't have the means to pay for that, then it's unaffordable, because your expectations of your housing aren't in line with what you're making. And right. So, partly there's that kind of whole conversation, but then at the same time, Vancouver itself has this inflated value purely because of outside sources, investment from overseas and investment just in general. Housing is, right. is turning into an investment more so than, it's a commodity versus a basic need. And so in my opinion, affordability really should be based on what you personally can afford, more so than what the market can afford to you. So, just for right. example, if you're making a certain amount of money that allows you to only buy like a 1-bedroom condo, I believe that there's products out there that would allow you to move into that type of housing product. You just have to kind of wrap your mind around not maybe getting right away into that single family 3-bedroom 2,400 square foot housing product that you think that you need, but really you only need, say, a 1-bedroom condo to get your foot into the door, and then working your way up from there as you grow your finances and as you grow your equity, then other housing products become quote unquote more affordable. So yeah, it's a tough question to answer, the affordability question.
So, I believe that's part of the densification process, and I think that that's going to really help a lot of people that don't want to necessarily go into a high rise, but don't want to necessarily go into the single family home as well. So they have they have that option, right?
Yeah, right.
So
Definitely. And I think that's the whole, I believe, idea around this missing middle push is to allow for more housing choice, so that, someone with a smaller, I guess, financial capacity can attain a house or a piece of property or an investment that's within their range within the city. So these multiplexes and these duplexes and these, townhomes and these condo towers, they all, they're looking to have that choice of a smaller unit, a smaller square footage that's less cost. I think the missing middle was to fill in the gap between a condo tower and a single family home.
right. Well, but I think back in the day, and I think in the early 1900s, I think they were building those types of buildings, and they were all over the place. And then they got taken down, and I think high rises replaced them, and that type of building was never built again, because there was a single families. Everybody wanted their own house, their own piece of property, right? So the mentality of that, I guess, shaped the planning process for the city guys. Kang, what do you think about timelines when it comes around to these new zoning regulations, and what would you suggest for the listeners? Just the guy that has a property or wants to know more about this, and maybe even have some input on how they think the zoning process or these regulations should happen.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you brought that up, Sandro. The timelines on the new implementation of the multiplex and really the simplification of the RS zones is happening right now. And the city of Vancouver the city of Vancouver staff are looking to get this in front of council by late summer or sometime in the summer. If the council supports the staff's recommendations, then it'll go to public hearing in either late summer or early fall. So that's in the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And the city will be sharing more information online. So, listeners can either connect with the City of Vancouver 311 helpline. They can look on our social media and I'm sure your social media as well to get more information. By the end of this year, the idea is that there will be strong public support, which then will allow the city staff to enact the bylaws. And the goal is that by January 1st, they're hoping to have a set of bylaws ready to be implemented, so that then you can actually apply for a building permit by early 2024. So that's the timeline. It's happening really quickly. And in terms of the public and our listeners to voice their support, that will be happening. The public hearing will be happening sometime in late summer, early fall. And your listeners will just have to stay in tune with either the City of Vancouver or either of our social media to get links to how to register to speak or how to write into council to express support for the new zoning changes.
So, Kang, if someone wanted to get a hold of you and had questions and they didn't know where to start, maybe you can give us your either email. How do we get a hold of you?
Right. Yeah, you can. Your listeners can get a hold of me through, most likely the easiest way is just my website, architrixstudio.com. And through there's an email link that will take you to directly to my email. Or you can email me directly, Khang at architrixstudio.com. Khang at architrixstudio.com. And or you can call our office 604-677-7877, and I'll be more than happy to chat with you or your listeners about the potential of their lot and what the upcoming bylaws, how it can benefit their lot and what they can do for their current situation and the future of the property as well.
Yeah, well, Khang, this has been awesome. I know we could talk about this stuff. We could go on for a lot longer, but I definitely think that we need to do another one maybe in a few months' time and when maybe some more changes have been made. So I just want to say thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Sandro.
Thanks, guys, for listening. You can catch us on wherever you guys get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Art of Making Home with Sandro Stefanucci from Abstract Homes. Make sure you keep following every episode to learn his advice about the building industry here in the Lower Mainland. He will have great tips on following episodes when it comes to building or renovating your home. Make sure to follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and of course, Apple Podcasts, so you don't miss his latest construction advice. If you want more information on Abstract Homes, all you have to do is go to their website, abstracthomes.com. Talk to you next time.